Hi everyone, what's going on? It's Ben here, back again today with another video, and today we are going to be doing a tier ranker of all of the Black Mirror episodes. So basically, I already actually pre-made it just because I figured that would be a bit easier. You see the categories I have for this are best, great, good, okay, and bad. And honestly, you can kind of see them, and I'll talk through my choices on each of them as I go through. I don't think that there are really many bad episodes of Black Mirror, so to speak. Even the ones I put in the bad category, I was still somewhat interested in, and they held my attention relatively speaking throughout. But I think in comparison to other Black Mirror episodes, they are not as good, in my opinion. So I'll go through each of my choices. I think I'm going to work my way up from bad to best instead of vice versa. And I'll basically explain why I put the episode where I did. So the first one is Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2. The Miley Cyrus episode is probably how it's mostly known. And I put it in the bad category. And I put it this low mainly because, a big part of Black Mirror is how does the technology impact the episode is a big thing I always ask myself. And with this episode, the technology didn't really impact the episode as a whole very much. And it kind of felt like it could have just been like a generic, you could have had no technology, so to speak. It just felt like it took place in present day, and there wasn't any real Black Mirror elements to it, in my opinion. So that's why I have it this low. And also, just the storyline as a whole was okay, but as I say, it didn't really involve futuristic technology in any way. Black Museum is the next one, and I feel like this episode really just exists to hold a lot of Easter eggs for the viewers. As far as the actual plot goes, it's basically 3 mini stories, kind of in the vein of White Christmas. Each of the first 2 are decent. The last one I wasn't really interested in, and then a big plot twist of the episode comes towards the end, and it's kind of obvious as they're building up to it what it's going to be. And one of the problems I have is you never really connect with the main girl pictured here in the photo. And the reason is because a lot of the episode you're spending in these kind of flashback stories, so you never really connect with her, and she only really comes into play in about the last 15 to 10 minutes of the episode. Next on the bad tier, I have Smithereens, another season 5 episode like the Miley Cyrus one. This is where the premise is a man takes another man hostage who's an intern for a company that's like a social media company like Facebook, and he holds him hostage, and his request is that he talk to the founder of the social media company because he wants to get some stuff off his chest related to the death of his fiance. And essentially his fiance died because he was checking the social media site. He was driving and looking at Facebook at the same time. They got in a car crash and she died, so he feels guilty. Again, an episode that yes, it has some elements of Black Mirror, how does technology impact us, but there's nothing futuristic about this one. It basically takes place in present day. In fact, it even says in the episode it takes place in 2018. And I think, again, sort of similar to the first one, it just doesn't feel like Black Mirror, really. It feels like it could be kind of any show. And I think Black Mirror, what I love about it is that it's really distinct in that there's a unique technology impacts each episode in some way. I think that's a really key part of the show, and there wasn't really that in this one. Next, in the okay tier, these are ones I guess I'm going to distinguish in that they do at least feel unique to Black Mirror more so. Either that, or I just thought overall the plot was a lot better. So the first one, Men Against Fire. And by the way, within these tiers, they're not ranked at all. I just put them in the tiers. It's not like I think that this one is better than this one. It's they're just in the tiers, but they're in no particular order once they're in here. I think Men Against Fire is good, but again, I feel like the plot is a little too straightforward, actually. And like, if you don't know, the premise is main character's in the army and he's hunting down these creatures that kind of look like insects that are being stored. It's kind of like a Holocaust kind of thing. And then towards the end of the episode, you find out that the bugs that he's been hunting are actually not bugs. They're humans. They're human, regular people. And the army put implants into all the soldiers' brains that they only see these people as bugs, so it's easier to kill them and they have less reservations. While that specific moment is interesting, the rest of the episode is a little boring, honestly. Next episode, White Bear. Some people love this. Some people claim it's like the best episode of the series. My problem with it is that, again, it's one like Men Against Fire, actually, where you don't really know what's going on up until about the last 10 minutes. And although that can work sometimes, I feel like they pretty much leave you in the dark the whole episode almost. And because of that, I felt like I couldn't really connect with the main character because she, like the audience, the whole episode is just saying like, what's going on, and it's only at the end that you find out that she's being put through like essentially a punishment for being a criminal. Next is the Waldo moment. This one is arguably one that you could drop down to the bad tier. It doesn't really have many. This one, Smithereens, in the below tier, and then the next one I have on here, National Anthem. They're probably the least like technology involved episodes. The Waldo moment I thought was interesting because it kind of had a take on how technology can impact politics. So I thought that aspect was interesting, but there isn't much like actual technology involved in this episode. So for that reason, I have it lower. And it's even like a borderline bad episode in my opinion. I thought like if it wasn't a Black Mirror episode, I'd actually think it was a little bit better than. But because it's a Black Mirror episode, it veers quite a bit from what I expect typically from the series. Next is the National Anthem. Of course, this is the premiere episode of Black Mirror, and the premise is that the Prime Minister is blackmailed and he has to have intercourse with a pig, or they'll kill somebody in the royal family. And he does, if you know what happens in the episode, you know what happens. But again, I have it lower here because while the plot is interesting, it doesn't really feel like Black Mirror, and so for that I dropped it down. Next is Striking Vipers. It feels like a weird premise with the guys having sex in the video game, and it seemed like the episode had some potential and had some ability to be interesting, but didn't really capitalize on it, and so that's why I only had an okay. And then last one, an okay, I have Crocodile, which is a very dark episode, and I thought it was well made and interesting, but I guess only certain parts were interesting. The first half of the episode is very slow compared to the second half, like extremely slow, I would even say. And so for that reason, I have it lower. Next in the good tier, I have San Junipero. A lot of people think this is the best episode of the series. I think it's good, which is why I have it in this tier, and I found the plot interesting, but I feel like it came at a point in the series where we had kind of seen a dozen times over the whole simulation plot point, whereas like, is life in a simulation as important as life out of a simulation? And so for that reason, I don't think it broke that much of new ground really, and I don't necessarily I think people were supposed to love these two main characters. I thought the acting was fine. I don't think it was anything remarkable. I think actually people really point out this episode a lot more because it's a positive episode as opposed to a negative one. But overall, I think the quality's good, the writing's good, but just nothing that made me say like, wow, that's great. Next is Archangel. this is an episode that I actually really like the concept a little bit more than the execution. The concept of being able to see what your kid's doing all the time is pretty interesting, and it's almost like the idea had more potential than the episode actually ended up having once it was complete. So for that reason, I only have it in good. USS Callister, the Jesse Plemons kind of Star Trek themed one. Again, sort of like a little bit of having more potential than the actual episode capitalizing on it. Basically, Jesse Plemons is a nerdy dude who works at a company, and he has created a video game where if he gets somebody's DNA, he can make them a character in his video game at home. And basically, he abuses the people in the video game, but they're only recreations of real people. They're just like essentially simulations. So the episode kind of focuses on, is it morally wrong to be cruel to a simulation, because it's essentially just being rude to a video game. You're not being rude to real people or cruel to real people. Or it's kind of like if you do it to a real person or to a simulation, what's worse, or are they the same thing, or how are they different? An interesting idea and well executed, but again, it's kind of an idea that's been hit at a lot more throughout the show, so it felt like a little bit of a retread. Next is Be Right Back, starring Domhnall Gleeson. Overall, really solid and interesting, kind of about AI and whether AI can ever fully replace humanity. Overall, well done, and honestly, this one is pretty much borderline great. I actually, even right now, I think I'm going to move it up to great. Really simple plot. A woman loses her husband, and she tries to feel fulfilled with him gone, but she doesn't quite. Then Playtest, which was good, and my only problems with it are that the first half is really slow and not very interesting compared to the last half of it, like the last 30 minutes, but overall really good. And it's about a guy who's doing a video game simulation, if you're unfamiliar. Next is Nosedive, which I think was just a really interesting concept, and so for that reason, I had it up top in great, and it also was executed very well with good acting by Bryce Dallas Howard, so for all those reasons, I put it up there. Shut Up and Dance, I thought was a really dark episode, but really well done, which is the next one. This one with the guy who plays Bronn from Game of Thrones. It's about people who are getting essentially extorted and blackmailed in exchange for doing random tasks, and then at the end, the internet person who had promised them that they wouldn't reveal their secrets if they do all the tasks still reveals them anyways. Very dark, very good twist towards the end too if you watch this one. So I liked it quite a bit. Next is 15 Million Merits. This one was very different in that it was kind of like a 1984 inspired flick, or I guess it's not a flick, it's an episode. Daniel Kaluuya's acting is phenomenal too, and just the whole premise is probably arguably the most distinct of any of these, or right up there, and yeah, just really well executed. And then we have White Christmas, which is the John Hamm episode, and it's the first one to kind of tap into this whole idea of like, is it right or wrong to abuse a simulation, or like, it kind of, a big theme of Black Mirror has been like simulations and what does it mean to live life in a simulation compared to real life, and like, are mental copies of one another just as human as the real versions, like this whole concept of cookies in the Black Mirror universe. And this episode was the first one to do it, so I put it pretty high up. And then obviously the next one was the one I just moved from good to great. Now my A tier, like my best episodes ever, I have, I actually don't remember the name of this one, but it's the one where the husband can replay the memory. Everybody can replay their memories in the world, and so basically through the use of replaying his memory, he figures out some things about his wife that aren't so great, and basically he kind of starts to see his life unravel just because this feature of his life is thing, like that he's able to um, replay his memories. Just because of that existing, things start to go downhill for him. And I think it's one of the best because it shows how like just one simple tweak of futuristic technology could change somebody's entire life compared to if that didn't exist like we have now. To me, this is kind of like if you're gonna show one episode of Black Mirror to somebody to get them into it, I would show them this episode. It kind of shows like what the show can be as far as presenting a futuristic concept that we could see integrated into our lives somehow. Next is Hang the DJ. This is the dating app one, and I just loved it and thought it was really well acted. Liked the concept a lot. Thought there was enough mystery to keep you interested, and the twist at the end was good. And um, again, like kind of applies to current times, but through a futuristic concept. And I like that it was a positive ending for one of the few times in Black Mirror. And next one I have is Metalhead, which is the black and white kind of futuristic Terminator-esque episode that is basically a survival movie about this dog-like robot hunting this woman who's on the run, and it's kind of in the future. You would expect it to have taken place far ahead of everything else going on in the series because it seems like a apocalypse kind of thing. And I'm just a sucker for like survivalist kind of stuff, so I really liked this, where it was like very little dialogue and just basically this dog creature hunting down this woman and how she does these different things to get away from it, and just really well executed. Love the cinematography and the acting and the plot, even though the plot's pretty straightforward. Probably the most minimalistic plot of any of the episodes ever. And then the last one, which I think could contend and may be the greatest episode of the series, which is also the longest one, is Hated in the Nation, the one that's like an hour and 30 minutes, basically a movie. I would actually say it basically is a movie. It's not an episode. It's its own full-length movie, really. Acting is good. Concept is good. Again, it's a really good mystery with some good twists and turns along the way. And yeah, I just really, really admire this episode. I think it's well, as I said previously, well executed, and the mystery elements of it are really well done too, which I really liked. And it incorporates technology in a pretty interesting way too, and it also incorporates like social dynamics in relation to technology, which I think is a good touch too. So those are my picks, guys. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you all next time. Bye.